Have you ever thought about a city that's seen empires rise and fall? A place where you can walk on Roman pavement, down Viking streets, and past Norman castles all in a single afternoon? Well, that city is York, and its story is one of absolutely astonishing survival. And that, right there, is the heart of our whole explainer. This isn't just a dry history lesson. It's about resilience. It's the incredible story of how one place has been besieged, burned, ravaged by plague, and even bombed from the sky, and yet somehow it's still standing. So where do we even begin? Let's wind the clock way, way back. Picture this. It's 71 AD. Roman legions are marching north into what they see as a wild, untamed land. Their mission? To crush hostile tribes and lock down the northern frontier of their massive empire. Now, what's just wild is how fast this place goes from a muddy frontier fort to a center of real power. It's one thing to build a fortress, but it's another thing entirely for it to become the place where a man named Constantine is declared emperor of Rome. And I mean, this is the guy who would go on to legalize Christianity and literally change the course of world history, all starting right here. So what happens when a superpower like Rome just leaves? You'd think the city would crumble into dust, right? But nope, not York. The Anglo-Saxons moved in, gave it a new name, Eboracum, and it adapted. It became this major hub for Christianity and learning, proving it could survive even without its original creators. But of course, peace never seems to last long in this story. Just as things were settling down, new sails appeared on the horizon. A new wave of violence was coming, sailing straight from across the North Sea, and it was headed directly for York. And bam, in 866 AD, the Vikings hit. Now, this wasn't just some smash-and-grab raid. This was a full-on takeover. The great heathen army didn't just sack the city. They stayed. They gave it yet another new name, Jorvik, and rebuilt it into a bustling, thriving Viking capital, packed with traders and craftsmen from all over the world. And to give you some perspective, get this. We're talking about a population of around 10,000 people. Now, that might not sound like a lot to us, but back then, that was huge. It made Jorvik one of the most important cities in the entire Viking world, a key link in a trade network that stretched for thousands of miles. 1066. What a whirlwind of a year. The Viking Age in England ends in a bloody battle right outside York's walls. But before the city could even catch its breath, a new player entered the game, William of Normandy. And he was about to prove himself the most ruthless conqueror York had ever seen. See, the people of York rebelled against their new Norman king. William's response was, well, apocalyptic. His armies marched north and enacted something called the Harrying of the North. They burned everything, slaughtered livestock, destroyed crops. It was a clear and terrifying message, written in fire and blood. Defy me, and I will wipe you from the face of the earth. And yet, somehow, from those ashes, York rose again. This next chapter, the medieval period, is an era of incredible extremes. The city would climb to new heights of wealth and power, but it would also see some of its absolute darkest days. So, how did it bounce back? Wool. Seriously. English wool was basically the oil of the Middle Ages, and York was right at the center of this massively lucrative trade. All that cash brought incredible political clout. So much so that for a time, the King of England literally moved his entire government to York, making it the effective capital of the country. But all that prosperity couldn't hide a truly dark underbelly. In 1190, something absolutely horrific happened. Whipped up into a frenzy, a mob cornered the city's entire Jewish community inside a castle tower. We're talking about around 150 people, men, women, and children, who were massacred. It's a shocking stain on the city's past that can't be ignored. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, a new, invisible enemy arrived in 1349, the Black Death. It tore through the city's narrow, crowded streets, killing, by some estimates, up to half the population. Can you even imagine that? It brought the city to a standstill for decades. So, you've had conquest, massacre, and a devastating plague. What's next? A brutal civil war, of course. In the Wars of the Roses, York was literally the capital for the House of York. The city rode high for a time under Yorkist kings like Richard III, only to have it all come crashing down with his defeat. With the end of the Middle Ages came a different kind of war. This time, it wasn't about who got to wear the crown. It was a fight for the very soul of the nation, a fight over faith. And you guessed it, York was once again on the front lines. The Reformation basically ripped the city in two. When Henry VIII split from the Catholic Church, York became a hotbed of resistance. And if you want to understand the human cost, just look at the story of Margaret Clitheroe. She was a butcher's wife, an ordinary woman, who was crushed to death for the crime of hiding priests in her home. It's a brutal reminder of how these huge historical shifts affect real people. Okay, so after centuries of warfare and religious strife, the 19th century finally brings a completely different kind of revolution. This one was all about iron and steam. Thanks to a man they called the Railway King, George Hudson, York was transformed into the bustling hub of a new iron empire, connecting this ancient city to the rest of the country and sparking a massive new era of growth. And that brings us into the modern era. I mean, think about everything this city has already been through. It survived Romans, Vikings, plagues, and civil wars. But the 20th century was about to unleash a brand new kind of terror, one that came from the sky. Imagine you're in York on the morning of April 29, 1942. The air raid sirens are wailing, but everyone is confused. There are no major factories here, no big military bases. It just doesn't make any sense. Why on earth are we being bombed? The answer is just chilling. It was an act of cultural warfare. The Nazis were retaliating for British raids by deliberately bombing the UK's most historic and beautiful cities. And how did they choose their targets? They used a German tourist guidebook. York wasn't bombed because it was a military threat. It was bombed precisely because of its history. 92 people lost their lives in that raid. But amidst the chaos and tragedy, something incredible happened. The city's great cathedral, the minster, was hit by firebombs. And while the raid was still going on, volunteer firefighters, just regular citizens, climbed onto its massive roof to beat back the flames. It was an unbelievable act of bravery. In the years since, York has done something truly remarkable. Instead of trying to bury its long, complicated, and often painful past, it has embraced it. It turned that history into its greatest strength, creating world-class museums and centers that celebrate every chapter: the Romans, the Vikings, the railways, all of it. And that, I think, is the real lesson of York. Its story proves that the past is never really gone. It's alive in the stones of the city walls, in the layout of the streets, in the spirit of the place. Every moment, from Constantine's coronation to those firefighters on the roof, has shaped not just one city, but the much bigger story of our civilization. When you think about it, York's survival is just an incredible testament to human resilience. It reminds us that our own history, with all of its challenges and struggles, is part of a much longer and often surprising story of endurance.